Back to the 21 Boom guided meditation series. This is your guide for the evening, Coach Zach Feeney. And once again, take your seat and resolve to put everything down in this first moment. The minutes you spend here are precious. Don't let them slip away into planning your day or worrying about what has happened or may yet happen. Give yourself this time to be undistracted. And when you feel ready, and if you feel like it's the right thing for you to do, you can close your eyes. And as you feel the energy of your body, you might take a few deep breaths. I want you to bring to mind something that you regret, something that you did badly, or a conversation that didn't go well, some awkward encounter, some negative experience that you think reflects badly on you. And bring that to mind however you can. Visualize it. And how does that make you, how does that feel? Simply feel the emotion associated with these thoughts. Notice how it seems to modify your mind. Your mind seems to take the shape of this feeling. And how is that possible? All these things are just appearances in consciousness, and consciousness never takes the shape of anything. They're simply the light by which these things are seen and felt. Again, bring to mind something that you don't like, some thought about yourself. Notice how this makes you feel. Where does this feeling come from? Feel it as energy in the body. Where's the feeling of shame or embarrassment or regret or of self-doubt? The moment you can kindle a negative feeling like that, bore into it with your attention. Feel it as closely as possible, this energy. This kind of attention robs it of meaning. They're simply appearances in consciousness in this moment. How could this next arising feeling be what you are? You are simply noticing it, and it passes away on its own. Once again, feel your body as a state of energy, of sensations coming and going. Notice any mood that might be present and just drop everything. Just pay attention. In and as consciousness to whatever appears. Now, why don't you open your eyes and gaze into your visual field and keep your gaze very wide? See if you can look at your visual field as a whole. And notice what you see. You're aware of light, color, and shadow. But notice too, this is simply the fact of awareness. This is the fact of consciousness. This is consciousness. This is made of consciousness, whatever that is. It's not that you have consciousness on one side and your visual field on another. There's this single fact. Simply rest as that condition, and it includes sounds and sensations and even thoughts. See if you can reawaken the vividness of your visual field with your eyes closed. So simply close your eyes and simply stare into the darkness, the shimmering darkness that you see there. Let this be like the sky of the mind. Notice that there's actually no boundary in it. And as you gaze into your visual field in this way, once again, let your gaze be very wide. And as an exercise, visualize something in this space. Flash a visual memory of a person's face or an object or a landscape familiar to you. And notice how it superimposes itself and integrates in some way with this background. Become aware of the sensations in your eyes and eyelids. And notice that the visual field that you see is quite distinct from those sensations. It's not confined by your feelings of having a face, no more so than the sky is confined by that when you gaze at it with your open eyes. In the last minute of the session, turn attention upon itself. Notice this feeling that you're paying attention from someplace, perhaps in the head, and look for that place. Look for that which is looking. Okay, well, I hope you found that exercise useful. Meditation really doesn't work unless it works. So it's good to experiment to see if you can actually do this practice in the midst of unpleasant emotion. I think you'll find that as you learn to be mindful, as you learn to break the spell of the story you're telling yourself about your experience, and simply pay attention to moods, emotions, and thoughts themselves, the half life of any negative mental state is remarkably short. And just noticing that beyond any other insight that you might have into the nature of consciousness can be incredibly freeing. I spent a lot of time thinking about the power of ideas, both good and bad. Unfortunately, bad ideas can be every bit as powerful as good ones, depending on the context. They don't have precisely the same power. Being in touch with the way the world is has a utility that being confused or self deceived doesn't. Now, there are philosophical problems that I'm skirting here. It's hard to be precise by what we mean by true knowledge or what it means to be in touch with reality. On some level, all we have are our perceptions and descriptions of reality, which we never really get to compare with the pristine chunk of reality as it is in itself. But without going down that philosophical rabbit hole, it is obvious that knowledge, however we conventionally define it, does have real power. If we ever cure cancer or Alzheimer's, it will be based on understanding something about the biology of these diseases, and this understanding is different from our present state of relative ignorance. But ignorance and confusion have power too, and they account for most of what is wrong in our world. Our world isn't filled with bad people intentionally doing bad things. There's some people like this, but it's far more common to find good people or potentially good people. Psychologically normal people, at any rate, doing bad things while under the sway of bad ideas. And once you see this, you recognize that there's no force on Earth more powerful than human thoughts. Apart from an immediate asteroid impact, ideas are the most powerful forces of nature we can ever encounter. Each of us comes into the world having inherited the cultural artifacts and assumptions of our ancestors. They built this place, they canonized certain norms of behavior, they wrote the laws and built the institutions, they fought the wars, they filled the reservoirs of grievance between disparate peoples. What we have beneath all of this, all of culture, are words. There's language under the pavement. Civilization is a word predicated on the meaning of other words. Freedom, art, science, reason, justice, democracy. All we can do is seek to persuade one and another with better concepts and ideas. In our ability to identify problems and to solve them, and to identify and solve new and hopefully more subtle problems, is entirely the product of thoughts. So there's nothing about the practice of meditation that denies the power of ideas. The question from the point of view of practice is whether one needs to be identified with thoughts, confused by it, ruled by it, made to suffer by it in each moment, and the answer to that question is no. Recognizing thought, truly as a transitory appearance in consciousness, isn't just another thought, but neither is it a substitute for thinking when thinking is required. So there's no need to denigrate thoughts. It's almost everything, almost.